I was hurt with all the name game elements because people weren't, those familiar with book club weren't listing any of the engineering stuff I do. But the Girls Inc. reference was a good heads up. So Ali, we are so thrilled to have you tonight. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. This is so cool. I loved hearing about everyone's like current reads and listens. Thank you so much for having me.
So Ali, to get things started, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you first got into writing?
So I was originally a fan fiction writer. I actually started writing because in my other career, which was, well, at that time, I was in grad school. I was a grad student and I was actually writing my thesis. And I think I just really needed to have another interest that wasn't like grad school related, because I was just going nuts. And all I thought about at the time was just like grad school related. And that's when I kind of got into fandom and fan fiction. So first I would just read it, which is, I was I think in my late 20s, which was kind of late to discover fan fiction. I feel like usually people know about it when they're much younger, but that's when I discovered it. Originally I would read it and then I would just write it. And then that went on for a few years. And then I kind of got lucky in the sense that my agent is someone who reads fan fiction, and she basically found the stuff that I've been writing online. And she contacted me and she was like, are you thinking of maybe publishing and writing something original? And that's kind of how I ended up writing romance novels.
Oh, wow. And it seems also, I mean, such an interesting journey. And I'm curious about the differences, especially in your style and approach, from having to do what would have been more technical type writing based on your academic research, and then migrating to fan fiction, to then writing full-length novels and novellas for romance.
Yeah.
Those are very, I would think those are very different.
Yeah, they totally are different. And I think, especially at the beginning, what felt so good to me about writing fiction was that it was a completely different muscle that I was exercising. Like it was something that was different from what I had to do, 9 to 5. Actually, now grad school is more like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. But it was something that was different, and I think that's what was so amazing to me. I had never really been a very creative person before, so I think and I don't know, I feel like maybe this is something that other people can identify with, but I was the type of kid that when I was growing up, I was very good at stuff like science and math, and I feel like that's what most praised about me when I was growing up, and that's what was most rewarded, and so that's what I focused on all the time. So it was such a big part of my identity, kind of being good at that kind of stuff, that I never even tried writing stories, even though I had a passion for stories and for reading and for like discovering things. Or I remember when I was a kid, I would watch a movie and wish that the movie was longer, and then I would like write stories in my head about like what happened to the characters or stuff like that. So I guess what I'm saying is I feel like maybe there was always a little bit of a nugget there in me that wanted to do more creative things, but I never really had I guess a chance to do it. I do think that, yeah, part of the appeal for me originally was that I was doing something that was completely different from my day job. But then in the end, now that I've been doing it for a couple of years, being on deadline for a scientific manuscript and being on deadline for a book that you have to turn into your editor are kind of painfully similar feelings of like having to make yourself kind of do something, and like there is this like blank document staring at you and you're like, I really have to write something. This needs to happen. And that's very similar actually.
Well, and that's the thing I found in talking with writers, because when I'm having to write engineering documents and reports, I'm taking some of the tips that I've heard from writers, and like you said, it's getting it onto the page.
Yeah.
Now I do get criticized of like, hey, this isn't Shakespeare and you're throwing too many creative things. So now that you've put out the novels and writing the fanfic, do you find any of that somehow creeping into your more academic writings?
You know, um, so right now I am taking a break from my academic writing life, or from, I guess, I'm taking a year off to focus on writing just for this year, to see what happens, if it's something that is sustainable for me from like a mental health standpoint. But so right now that isn't much of it, but I actually kind of found that the more I wrote fan fiction and the more I wrote like creative stuff, the easier it was for me to just kind of like go and write. I found myself like kind of overthinking my sentences a little bit less. I guess it's one of those, practice makes perfect. And in this case, it's the practice of having the words in your head and having to put them on paper. So I have to say that I think that writing creative stuff in a way helped me in the writing of my usual, manuscripts and stuff initially. Then I sort of started writing only creative stuff and being super bad at doing my actual job. So that was that. But yeah.
And I read that some of the fan fiction that inspired the love hypothesis was Rey and Kylo Ren. And of course, in Love on the Brain, you're talking about Empire Strikes Back. So obviously very Star Wars heavy on everything. Is that the main fanfic that you were writing and following, or do you also delve into other worlds?
So the fan fiction that I wrote was for Star Trek originally, and then Star Wars. So those were my main two fan fiction writing communities. But I read fan fiction of everything. Like I have no boundaries. I will read fan fiction for TV commercials, literally. Like if I see something that I like, I literally just immediately go back to AS3, which is the main fan fiction archive place, and I'm like, let's see what's out there. So yeah, that is I've read fan fiction across probably hundreds of fandoms to make up for the time where I didn't know that fan fiction was a thing, and now I just like read fan fiction all the time.
And so this is where my geek flag comes out. So all types of Star Trek fan fiction, or were you limited to just like the original or DS9 or I mean, there's so many areas to choose from, right?
DS9 has so many potential trips, I feel, but yeah, no, I mean, the reason I really started with fan fiction was that I was in love with the idea of Spock and Nyara Uhura being in love. It's just like they have such a perfect couple, like, and she is, kind of grad student, I guess, and he's our professor. So like it was something that was incredibly like titillating, I guess. That I don't know, that's a weird word, but like it was very intriguing to me. So that was my first ship, my first couple that I was interested in. But then I kind of like started literally shipping everyone on the Enterprise with everyone else. So I would say the original series in terms of writing fan fiction, but in terms of reading fan fiction, I have widely explored.
Well, this is one of the aspects that I love in your books, because it is so relatable. So being in STEM myself, and I hear this from people in STEM and also outside of STEM, how much they love it, because so many of the circumstances the characters find themselves in are so relatable. And then you pepper it through too with the pop culture references. So when I'm reading, I mean, I feel I know these people. These are people I could be working with, from their awkwardness at times and handling of social situations to watching, all the different marathons and binging shows, but then also being on social media and listening to the 90s grunge, right? So it feels so real.
Yeah, I mean, that is the way that I try to, like you say, flesh out characters, like to me, what I try to do is to give them interest. I feel like what draws me to other people is to find, interest in common, or to find that they have, pet peeves, or to find that there is something about their past that I don't know, that resonates with me. I guess, yeah, it's, to me, having a constellation of little things that characters like and dislike and think about, and that they, do during their day. For example, they have to have, I don't know, a cup of tea at 11 a.m. or they won't be able to function. Like, having these little details is, to me, what makes characters feel alive. So that's what I try to do when I write a character. It's I don't know if it's a shortcut to build a personality, but I like it. So I hope it works.
And how do the characters come to you then? I mean, and as you're writing, are you starting with the characters? Do you see them as movies in your head, or are they talking to you? Kind of, what is that inspiration?
I wish they talked to me, honestly. It would be so much better. I have to say, it really depends. Like, I'm drafting a book right now, and there is a lot for me of going through my first draft, and as I write, kind of finding out things that might work. So I usually do start with, a bunch of personality traits that I want them to have, and things that are going to drive the story and the conflicts, and like a little bit of the past. But then my experience is that things change a lot while I'm writing. Like, for example, this is an example for this book that I'm writing right now, but like, I was writing the girl as having a best friend, and I kind of got to halfway through the book, and I was like, I feel like her relationship with her best friend should be a little bit complex, and that would justify this and this and this other thing. So the way it works for me is that I have a very fuzzy idea when I start, and then it kind of becomes more tangible and more kind of sculpted as I move through my draft. And then, every book needs to be edited 99 times. Every one of my books needs to be edited 99 times. And, every time you kind of find out a little bit more, you start wondering, what is this person thinking right now as she is saying something, for example, like what, like you kind of start diving for motivation and for, little things that can explain the behavior of a character as you write more and more. Or at least that's what I do. I wish I had a clear idea when I start, but I think I'm just not that kind of writer.
Well, but again, that's where I think it's so relatable for that, because not only are the women in STEM, but your heroes are also in STEM. And again, a lot of classic engineer traits and science where they're just, that there's more beneath those levels, right? And they're just awkward in getting some of that across.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, STEM is such a, I was actually watching, what was I watching? It was a documentary on, it was about like the anthrax things that happened, and it kind of ended up being that it was not a terrorist attack, but or I guess it was a domestic terrorist attack. It was like this scientist who had been sending all the mailings back in the early 2000s. Anyway, I was watching this documentary on Netflix. This is really, really cool. I highly recommend it. But like, there was this scientist who was talking about the guy who was sending all the envelopes full of anthrax, and he said he was a little bit out there for the general population, but it was normal for a scientist. And I was like, wow, called out, called out like that by my TV. And it was the truest thing. Like, scientists, like, we are so weird. So, you know what? Yeah, we're weird, complex, often like, I feel like a lot of people that I've met in STEM academia have had issues, or like have felt not necessarily at home in other environments before joining academia. I guess that's true of everyone. Like as you grow up, you kind of find your people, but yeah.
Mhm. Well, and you're pulling in also their origins in a lot of ways of either how they became inspired in STEM and decided to pursue what they did, or also explaining some of their personality traits of why they are and how that then plays into the story. And so are you pulling those from various people you encounter and kind of an amalgam of them, or are you actually pulling out specific people in some ways that you are working with?
I definitely have met people who, because what I have written was, people who usually were motivated by either something, I want to say traumatic, but just something important that happened in the past and that made them want to pursue this type of research, because this is the type of research that they think will allow them to make a difference and to make it so that people don't have to go through what they have gone through. And then generally just like, I think that there are a lot of people in STEM that are in STEM for the same reason that I am, because it was what they were good at growing up, and that becomes like a cycle of reinforcement, and I get reinforced for that, so I like it more, and the more I like it, the more I get reinforced. And that is not to say that I don't really like STEM, because I definitely like science, but it becomes when you make your life choices, there are a lot of things that come into play, I would say.
It evolves.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely. It's I do like to write characters who find some sort of significance into what they do, definitely. And then they derive identity from what they do. And I guess I like to write it because it was a big deal for me. Like when I was a grad student, and I look back and I roll my eyes at like myself, but I really derived probably 90% of my identity from the fact that I was studying neuroscience in a way that was probably obnoxious. And I'm like, looking back, I'm like, but, it is kind of I feel like there is something about being in grad school that is so all-consuming that you have to take it way more seriously than it needs to be taken to like justify how much you're working at it. So yeah. Oh God, memories.
Lots of late nights, yes. One of the fun aspects with Love on the Brain was how B really became kind of an unknown internet sensation with her Twitter handle of What Would Marie Do? And speaking of being an internet sensation, I mean, what is it like for you to just completely blow up and essentially be a viral trend on TikTok? I mean, I think I saw something of like more than 300 million views about your book and the hashtags.
I think I had like stayed at like 80 million. I think that's the last that I knew of, but that's amazing. It's amazing, honestly. It's been amazing, and it has made all the difference in the world for me, because like book of the month, I would say, which was so book of the month was book of the month. I know there are a lot of book of the month things. It's like the book club that like puts out books in hardcover. So book of the month and generally book talk really just like made my book kind of. People just made videos about it, and they talked about it, and they recommended it to others, and it was amazing. It was something that was totally beyond my control, or the control of my publisher, or the control of literally anyone. It's one of those things that like I can only be grateful that it happened, and at the same time it does create a lot of anxiety, just generally being perceived so much, like having your work out there under the eyes of so many people. It is definitely anxiety inducing and nerve-wracking. And for any person that likes the books that I write, there's someone who doesn't. And it's definitely like, I think that you kind of have to get used to. It's like, oh, your work is out there and people are talking about it, and sometimes they're talking about it positively and other times negatively. And it's definitely something that you need to kind of deal with, like from a just like a, oh, okay, I need to like pull myself away from these apps and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm generally very careful, but also like very I guess I'm trying to like separate myself from it a little bit, because it's not something that I can control in any way, if that makes sense.
Yes. Well, Ali, I want to shift a little bit to what we call our fresh fiction facts. These are meant to be fun questions and things that come to the top of your mind. Okay. So it should be easy, although some people claim we throw in some ringers. Okay. What is your favorite writing fuel? What keeps you going when you're really at the keyboard?
Ideally, wait, are we talking about like actual food, or are we talking about like variety motivation?
Food, drinks.
Okay.
Anything that would really apply.
I was like, would that be like my search for glory? Yeah. Diet Sprite. I actually have it's just my favorite drink ever. I haven't had it in like a couple of weeks because we haven't been going shopping. I mean, actually in the middle of a move, so we haven't been going shopping. And I was like, this morning I was like, I could write so much better if I had some Diet Sprite.
See, that was one of my comfort drinks when I was sick. It was Diet Sprite, soda crackers, and Price is Right on the TV, right?
I think that's why, because it reminds us of like kind of that, like it's true. It feels the same to me. It's that thing that you usually have when you're not feeling super well, or like you have to settle your stomach and stuff. Yeah.
Who would you want to be stuck in an elevator with?
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I would love to be with her in an elevator. I am in love with her.
Lots of lively discussion, definitely. What 3 items would you have on you if you were ever stranded?
As in the ones, sorry, I'm making it harder than it needs to be. As in the ones that I would want to bring with me, or that I always have with me, and so they would
either way.
Okay. Well, I would have my 2 cats, so that's 2 items, 1 in each pocket. I would have to take them, and then chocolate, like a huge chocolate bar.
I could handle that. What kind of cats do you have that they are going to fit in your pockets? Because mine would never fit in a pocket. Mine is like a 12-pound Maine Coon.
Oh my God. We went to the vet the other day, and our biggest cat is now 15 pounds. So, I don't know. We feed him the same as the other cat that weighs 10 pounds. Like, I don't know what we're doing wrong. But anyway, they wouldn't fit. I would have to have very big pockets. Yeah, but I love them too much.
Okay, I can go with that. Don't worry. Who was your first book boyfriend or girlfriend?
That's such a good question. I mean, I have to say Mr. Darcy and Lily. They were both my crushes. It has to be them. Yeah.
What luxury item or unnecessary product or service can you absolutely not live without?
Probably, I mean, food is not unnecessary, but I feel like my husband and I order in way more than we need to. Like, even if we have food around, we'll still like order in, and that's like an expense that we cannot justify. So we just do it without talking about it. We're like, let's get sushi, even though we have like a ton of food. So I guess that's what it is. Like, we're getting really bad at it.
What is the most terrible movie that you legitimately enjoy? And you could just watch over and over again.
I mean, Twilight probably. It's but I also don't like. This is an unpopular opinion, but I don't think the Twilight movies are as bad as people say. So I wouldn't even say that they are. Here I am. Don't kick me out, please.
No. We have a lot of Twilight fans here. Don't worry.
Oh,
Hey, we've already talked about Star Wars, Star Trek. I mean, you got to throw Twilight in there too, right?
Yeah. Okay. Actually, okay. So I actually haven't seen those movies in a while, but the scary movies, like the parody movie, the first and the second one, when I was, I don't even know how old I was, but I liked them so much. I would laugh so hard, and then like they weren't good sophisticated jokes, but I was all in. So I'm gonna say those ones, but I haven't rewatched them in a while. I should watch them.
What do you own an absolute ridiculous amount of?
Yarn. Yeah, it's more yarn than it's more yarn than I need.
Now, with the yarn, do you actually knit, or do you just have the collection of yarn that just kind of sits there until you get around to it?
I can't knit, but I crochet. I wish I could knit. I want to learn how to knit, but I don't know if I can use. I'm not very good with like dual hand coordination. So, but yeah, I do use it, but like the amount that I own is more than I could use if I crocheted 12-hour a day every day for the next year. Like that is, we're beyond reasonable here.
And then what do you do with the items that you crochet? Do you keep them around the house? Do you give them as gifts to family, friends?
Yeah, I have so little interest in a thing once I'm done with it. So I actually have like literally a bag full of scarves that I'm gonna need to like send to people before I move. Yeah, I usually it's like a gift for me. Sometimes I once made 2 little hats for my cats. Those I kept, but that's it.
Now, see, those are the pictures that you have to post on Instagram so everybody can comment on them. And
I think if you have to scroll a lot back, but one was a cute witch hat that I put on my cat, and he was really cute in it, honestly. My now 15-pound cat.
What is your favorite errand on your day off?
Like getting a fancy coffee at Starbucks. Is it an errand? Can it be considered an errand?
I figure anything where you're leaving the house could be considered an errand. So definitely, yes. What book world, yours or any other authors, would you most want to step into?
I want to say probably there is this author, her name is Arlie Smith, and she's actually an indie author that I highly recommend to everyone, although check the trigger warnings. And she has this specific book called The Last Hour of Gan. It's not a good word, but I have so many questions that I just would like to step into the world and ask the questions to the people who live in it. It's just such a good book. If you are taking me up on this recommendation, please do check the trigger warnings though, because there are a lot.
Definitely. What is your favorite time of day to write?
I mean, realistically, especially now that I'm drafting and I have a large number of words, it's not my favorite time of day to write, but it's the time of day where I find myself like just regurgitating as many words out as I can so that I can meet my daily goal, which is probably between 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. Like before my husband is like, dinner is ready, and after I have spent the morning doing things that I should not have been doing. It's rough. It's rough out here.
Well, I also know that you've lived in a lot of different locations. So where do you consider to be your ideal paradise?
the thing of having lived in a place is that you know the pros and the cons. So I feel like I am like kind of stuck in, like, for example, I feel like I would thrive in Canada, but at the same time, it would be very cold. So maybe it's not the right place for me. Maybe California.
I was curious because, I mean, since you did have one of your stories set where she's getting stuck in ice crevices and,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, oh, wait, no.
No, I don't like the cold at all. So
So better to write about versus actually experience. Yes.
I was like, poor girl, what am I doing? What am I doing to her?
Have you ever sent a text to the wrong person with hilarious results? And can you share those results?
Yeah, I mean, it's not hilarious, but when I was in college, I was part of the group of people who was organizing a surprise birthday party for my friend, and I texted basically something about the organization to my friend instead of texting it to like another person I'm organizing with. And that what happened at that point was that I was too mortified. So basically I recruited my friend whose birthday was happening to like pretend to be surprised and to like help me lie about the fact that I had screwed up. So it was a whole thing where I think it actually became stressful for him because he had to act like he was surprised even though he wasn't for me. So that was like a whole thing. I also have made a bunch of like other weird mistakes. I also remember I was young. But I think that was like maybe crisis averted thing, but I don't know. So my mom was about to leave for the night, and she would come back later. But my mom was about to leave, and it was just gonna be me at home, and I had a boyfriend of sorts at the time, and I texted him, "She's almost out," like, or something like "almost out" in Italian, of course, because that's where I'm from. And because of the way Italian is structured, like it was obvious that I was talking about a female person, and I texted it to my mom instead of texting it to him. So my mom kind of was like, "Are you having someone?" It was like a whole thing. But then I kind of managed to convince her that it was about something else. But did she really believe it, or did she just decide whatever? We will never know. We will never talk of it again.
Well, Ali, I've so enjoyed talking with you. And before we head over to the Fresh Fiction Happy Hour and Q&A with our readers, what should our readers be on the lookout for from you next? Can you share that already?
Yeah, I think my next book is coming out in January, actually, and it's basically just the novellas that some of you have mentioned earlier, but they are gathered in an anthology, and they didn't come out in paperback before, so now they are in paperback and in hardcover. And yeah, it's coming out at the beginning of January. And then my following book, like full-length book, is going to come out next, I want to say August, but I'm not 100% sure. And it's going to be set in physics academia. And it's a fake dating story, but the main character ends up, like the protagonist ends up with the brother of the person she's fake dating. So it's a little bit of a twist on the fake dating trope. Yeah. Yeah, that's it. That's what I have next.
And what's the best way for our readers to keep in touch with you and follow what all you're doing?
At this point, I am only really on Instagram. Sometimes I like pop by TikTok to like make a stupid video, but I don't really check messages there. But on Instagram, a little bit more. And it's Ali Hazelwood. And then I also have a website that I have not been updating, but I will update one of these days for sure. And it's alihazelwood.com, I think. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, Ali, thanks again for joining us tonight, and stick around for our follow-up Q&A.
Thank you so much.